Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the JD Rucker Show. If you are watching the evening show, which starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, then awesome. If you're watching the daytime show, which starts at various times depending on what's happening in the news, then that's awesome as well. But either way, you should find me wherever you want to find me, whatever platforms you use, Rumble, X, YouTube, BitChute, all the various networks, all the various areas where the show's broadcast. You can find all those, plus my websites, plus my socials, and even my sponsors. You can go to jdrucker.com/find, jdrucker.com/find. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the JD Rucker Show. I apologize once again for yesterday's debacle of an attempt to run the show. You know, it happens. It happens. If you missed yesterday's show, consider yourself blessed. Yeah, very short version of the show. It's funny because people were like, yeah, you sounded fine, you sounded okay, everything was going great, not sure why you freaked out. I was having some technological difficulties, and we are now officially going back to the good old style that I've done before. This was going to be the permanent style until I got talked into trying to, is for the sake of chat, because for those who don't know, by going through the other studio, I'm able to see all the chats as they come in real time from everywhere. I don't have to keep multiple screens open or anything. Well, I still need two screens, but I don't have to keep a bunch of screens open just to be able to, okay, what are they saying over there, and what about over here? You know, it would put it all in one nice place for me. That was the reason that we were going down that road. But we're going back. We're going back to this. What you're seeing is what you're going to get here on the JD Rucker Show. Please be sure to subscribe if you have not already. Please be sure to like this video. Thumbs up. We like those. They, help in some form or fashion. That's what we keep getting told. So yeah, be sure to do that. Otherwise, as I noted the other day, I don't like chit chat, so let's just get straight into it. Today's show is brought to you by my awesome sponsors. You can find them all by going to jdrucker.com/find. That's got my sponsors there, and you can, buy stuff, and it helps out the show. We've got 8 topics today, but I don't think it'll take too long. I think it'll be a normal length show, even though there's a few more things happening. First story of the day came. It was going to be a very different story. It was going to be me lambasting the Canadians, not Canadian people. To be clear, I love my Canadian brothers and sisters. I've got friends that are Canadians. I actually do like Canada a lot. But the leaders in Canada just keep getting worse. We've actually got a couple of stories about that. But the first story was one where it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that Premier Ford did that. He's going to really, oh, wait, no, never mind. He already backed down. Ontario imposes a 25% surcharge on 3 U.S. states for about 4 hours. And then he reversed his stance after President Trump hit them with even more tariffs. This comes to us from, Charlie Kirk on X says, 4 hours after President Trump escalated U.S. tariffs on Canada, Ontario has agreed to suspend its 25% tariff on electricity exports to the U.S. pending negotiations on a renewed USMCA trade deal. In other words, Trump's massive retaliation worked. President Trump imposed a 25% additional 25% tariff on top of the previous 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports from Canada as soon as Premier Ford from Ontario decided, hey, you know what, we're going to put a 25% surcharge on electricity to 3 U.S. states. Well, the pressure got to him pretty darn quickly. Here's a joint statement from Premier Ford and from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Again, 4 hours after he had decided that he was going to be Mr. Tough Guy. Today, United States Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick and Premier of Ontario Doug Ford had a productive conversation about the economic relationship between the United States and Canada. Secretary Lutnick agreed to officially meet with Premier Ford in Washington on Thursday, March 13th, alongside the United States Trade Representative to discuss a renewed USMCA ahead of the April 2nd reciprocal tariff deadline. In response, Ontario agreed to suspend its 25% surcharge on exports of electricity to Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. So that didn't last long. What very few people are going to discuss, though, is that the moral of the story here isn't just that President Trump is a great negotiator and that he utilizes the massive strength of the United States, especially our economy, as well as our military, to leverage deals that he wants in place. The bigger, and I would argue the more important takeaway from all of this is that nations are learning very quickly that President Trump is not messing around. That he, you go after him, you go after the United States, he responds quickly. He doesn't have to wait for a committee. He doesn't have to wait for some study done between 3 different departments and then for recommendations to be sent over. There are times for that. I'm not suggesting, everything should be just a snap decision. But in a situation like this, they hit us, President Trump hits back. This is very different from how he was running his first administration. And I think it's catching a lot of the world by surprise. We know it caught Ford by surprise because as of right now, he looks like an idiot. You see, I was able to make it through an entire segment about Doug Ford without talking about his robustness. See, we also had, President Trump did his thing today with Elon Musk. They had a line of Teslas at the White House. It was actually pretty cool, if you ask me. You didn't, but I thought it was cool. Not that I don't want to buy a Tesla, but maybe you do. Maybe Sean Hannity does. Maybe a lot of these influencers do. For those of you who want to buy a Tesla, hey, go for it. I myself, not a big fan of electric vehicles, even ones made by Tesla. So you won't see me doing it. But what about Tesla stocks? What about other things that perhaps we should be doing? Should we all go out and buy a Tesla to support Elon Musk and DOGE? That's a question for you. Look, it's very personal, I think, what cars we buy and what cars we drive. I myself would never buy an electric vehicle. I would never own an electric vehicle. I'm not a fan. That's just me. Even if it's from Tesla. And I do support what Elon Musk is doing with DOGE greatly. And it sucks that there are idiots out there that are attacking Teslas, but you've got Sean Hannity out there talking about buying a Tesla. He's apparently got one picked out, like $100,000 one. Got a lot of conservative influencers on social media talking about, at the very least, buying Tesla stock, if not a Tesla itself. Not for me. But I do think that I understand, I appreciate the pushback against the indoctrinated, mentally ill, radical leftists who are out there literally being terrorists and attacking Tesla dealerships, Tesla vehicles, and all that stuff. Again, textbook definition of terrorist is when you act in a way that is intended to drive terror or fear into others. It could be with your threats or with your actions or both. And so what these crazy people are doing should be considered domestic terrorism. But President Trump has talked about buying a Tesla. He actually even hopped in one today. Watch.
I'll watch Secret Service go crazy. Thank you.
I mean, if you actually drove it around, it would really be wild.
Wow. That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Now, in the extended clip, he actually asks the Secret Service, "Hey, do you care if I go on a ride or something to that effect?" Of course, they would never allow that. Not no, just no. And then once he got out of the car, he asked if Sleepy Joe would have been able to get in and out of that car, and of course, the answer is probably no. Look, if you want to buy a Tesla, if you want to buy Tesla stock, that's totally on you. Tesla stock did rebound a bit today. From last I checked, they were actually up compared to the plummeting 15% they lost yesterday. And now they are working their way back up, and that's a very good thing. And I like that, because I don't want Elon Musk to be harmed as a result of trying to help his nation. But let's face it, if anybody can afford to lose $100 billion and still be okay, it's probably Elon Musk. With that said, it's still not right. It still shouldn't be his thing. I mean, you got people like Nancy Pelosi, who they just go up, up, up in their net worth, and most members of Congress go up, 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 right? Why should Elon Musk lose over $100 billion just because he's trying to serve this nation that has adopted him, this nation that he himself has adopted as well? For the rest of us, for those of us who aren't going to go out there and buy a Tesla or buy Tesla stock, or even if you do those things, I would recommend that the people that really need our support today, as a result of this Looney Tunes actions by the radical leftist terrorists who are going after Tesla, are the people at the dealerships, the people that are actually working with Tesla for Tesla. Go visit them. Tell them that you appreciate them. Tell them that you support them. Bring them donuts, unless you're part of Maha, in which case, bring them celery sticks or something. Or bring them a coffee. There you go. Bring them a nice container full of coffee or something nice. Just let them know that you support them, you are praying for them, and then actually go out and, pray for them. Last week I had said that Ukraine would be more eager than Russia to get into a ceasefire agreement, mostly because Russia, they're winning, and they demand certain levels of victory. In other words, they want land. And whether or not Ukraine is willing to give that, we'll see. But apparently Ukraine does want a ceasefire, because they did agree to it today, thanks to Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz. They agreed to at least start the discussions and get going with a 30-day ceasefire that could turn into a truce, that could turn into a full-blown peace. One thing I did not note last week that I hadn't really thought about enough was that even though Zelensky himself, he wants perpetual war, he wants World War III, he wants whatever the globalist elite cabal tell him that he wants, his minions, his cohorts, the other members of the government, they want peace because they've already got everything they need. They've already been paid. They got their Bentleys, they got their Rolls Royces, they got their yachts, they probably got, a few of them have jets. It's like, okay, we got what we needed. Let's go ahead and get to peace so we can start enjoying the spoils of war. I know it sounds perverse, but that's really how they're thinking. Now the question is, will Russia play ball? Will Russia accept whatever they can get? And will the United States and Ukraine be able to offer them enough to make today's ceasefire work? We will see. The ball is in Russia's court now that Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz have negotiated a ceasefire with Ukraine. This comes to us from Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz themselves. Let's see what they have to say.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Just think about it. We've gone from if the war is going to end to now how the war is going to end, and this was an important first step, and that was under President Trump's leadership. He has literally moved the entire global conversation to where we had a very senior Ukrainian delegation with us today. We've had engagements with our Russian counterparts, and now it's how the war is going to end, and that's under President Trump's leadership.
It's good news. At least it's the start of good news. We will see if that good news continues. The question really is, will Vladimir Putin receive enough in, I guess you could say, compensation or whatever? Will he be able to get enough out of the deal that will allow him to save face and to engage in peace? We know that the Ukrainians are fairly desperate, very desperate. We know that Russia, while they might be winning, which they are, they too there's fatigue there. They clearly want the war to end as well. They just want to make sure, Vladimir Putin in particular, wants to make sure that he gets stuff out of it so that he can say, see, it was all worthwhile. We were able to get this and secure his legacy as a Russian legend or whatever it is that he's shooting for. But either way, I mean, this is far advanced of anything that the previous regime was able to accomplish. The fact that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, NSA, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, the fact that they were able to get this negotiated with the backing of President Trump in a very timely manner is a testament to what the Trump administration has been able to accomplish in less than 2 months. With that said, it's all for naught if Russia decides not to engage in peace, if Ukraine backs out, if anything goes wrong. There's a lot at stake here. And President Trump's reputation is at stake in particular. The fact that Rubio and Waltz are out there doing their thing and doing it well, apparently, gives us hope that we will, Lord willing, have peace in Eastern Europe here in the very near future. It should be crystal clear by now that the culling of the chickens, the rising egg prices, even though they did drop recently, let's note that, but for the most part they've been skyrocketing, beef prices going up. It is clear that the globalist elite cabal is still coming after our protein. They want us to eat lab-grown meat. They want us to eat bugs. They want us to starve. I don't know. They just want to control us. Who controls the food supply can control the people, according to Henry Kissinger, and they are definitely trying to do that. This is why I'm very, very happy to offer what amounts to the largest discount possible, which is going to prepperfarms.com to get long-term storage beef. And we're not talking about regular beef. We're talking about ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, the good stuff, chicken even. Get the long-term storage food that you want, the long-term storage protein that you're going to need with a 25-year shelf life. It's awesome. Go to prepperfarms.com, use promo code JDR again for the maximum possible discount. I am one of the owners of the company, and therefore I can offer you this discount and not feel so bad about it. This isn't a sponsor. This is mine. So engage with us directly there. Prepperfarms.com, promo code JDR. The other day I did an episode where I discussed the continuing resolution. And I said then that it was the only one that I'm not going to vehemently oppose. And I'm going to stick with that. I haven't changed my mind yet, even though I did have a little bit of sadness today based upon the passage of another CR every time. Maybe that's just muscle memory. Maybe I'm just used to being upset with our feckless GOP, our weak Republican leaders, just the weak leaders in general, in the House, definitely in the Senate. Who knows? Maybe I was just lashing out, and that's why I was so sad today. But it passed. So what does that mean for us? Well, the CR passed the House. I have mixed feelings about that, as I expressed the other day. On one hand, I appreciate what President Trump is saying. I appreciate that nearly all but one, Thomas Massie was the only holdout, and there was one Democrat who even voted for the CR. But I appreciate the fact that even those who generally vote against CRs, they were on board this time. President Trump was the difference maker in that. He said that we need this. We need the government to stay open so that we can continue to let DOGE cook. And that's the only reason that this has been the first and likely only CR ever in my life that I have not been vehemently opposed to. I still don't support it, per se. But I understand and I appreciate why they wanted to push forward. Here's the thing, and we'll get to the Senate here in a second, but here's the reality. This, to me, and we always say, oh, this is the last one, this is the last one, this is the last one. This really is the last one, okay? If this one, the Republican Party will lose all credibility if they're not able to pass massive cuts through a recession. That's the only path forward. Cut $500 billion. Okay, this is what Rand Paul has proposed. Ron Johnson and others have talked about it. Elon Musk is on board. He was absolutely shocked when he heard that it would only take 50 votes in the Senate, which that's still going to be tough to get with people like Susan Collins in the Senate, but still, I think that we could pull it off. $500 billion cut via legislation. That's very much more powerful than being cut through executive order. So it would make it not necessarily permanent, but at least much harder for Democrats, rhinos, the uniparty swamp to be able to pump back up the massive waste expenditures being perpetrated by our government against the American people. With that said, I'm still a little sad. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the Senate. Look, we know that Rand Paul is probably going to vote against it, which means that that's 52 Republicans that will vote for it, which means that, and maybe even less than that, but we'll say, let's assume Rand Paul votes no, the other 52 vote yes. That means you still need eight senators on the Democrat side to vote in favor in order to not have the government shut down. That's a lot. Democrats have been opposed to pretty much everything that Republicans have done, this ever since taking back control. Everything that President Trump has done ever since becoming president of the United States again, and of course everything that DOGE has done because they're terrified of their dirty little secrets coming out. All this is true, and I still, my ideal situation, I get it, but I still hope that Democrats aren't able to muster 8 sacrificial lambs to vote in favor of the CR. I'm still hopeful that we will get our government shut down and that then DOGE still continues to do its thing. I know I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want the best of both worlds. I want it all. And I'm not going to stop till I get it all, so to speak. But with that said, I understand that chances are, if I had to guess, chances are Chuck Schumer is going to find 8 Democrats, at least 8, and probably have a couple on backup just in case there are other Republicans who fall through. Democrats don't like to be blamed for government shutdowns. Democrats don't like the government to shut down. And in this case, they might want it to shut down. They really do. They really do think that if they can get it shut down, that'll slow DOGE down. So there's a good chance that they might let it happen for the first time. They'll be the ones that shut down the government because they couldn't blame anybody else if you got like 52 Republicans, all but one Republican in the Senate, all but one Republican in the House, voting in favor of it. It's not like they can blame the Republicans. They're trying to say, oh, but the CR doesn't do this and it kills kids or whatever feeble arguments they'll make. Legacy media will try to make those same arguments for them, but at the end of the day, the people will realize Republicans voted for it, Democrats voted against it. They're the ones who shut down the government. Chuck Schumer doesn't want that. So I think he's going to find his 8 or 9 or 10 sacrificial lambs to go out there and make some excuse as to why they're supporting the CR, and then they'll vote for it, and then we will have a government that's operational until September. Now, the only silver lining here is if they are able to use that time to pass a massive budget cut, massive recession plan that would allow them to take things that shouldn't be funded and defund them, hey, then all of it is worth it. Then I would have been like, you know what? Thomas Massie was wrong. Rand Paul was wrong. President Trump was right. And look at what's happened as a result. I hope that's the end result. Now, am I confident that the feckless GOP is going to do that? That they have the appetite to be able to make the appropriate cuts and codify them? No, I'm not. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because of the popularity of DOGE and of the will of President Trump. If it can be done, this is it. This is the one time when we might actually get to pull it off. Otherwise, I don't think, and this is going to sound like hyperbole, it's not. I don't think that we'll have this opportunity again in our history, at least not in our lifetimes. I think this is the one shot that we have to codify massive budget cuts. Now, that's not to say that we can't cut the budget here or there going forward. That's going to happen. Lord willing, it'll continue to happen. But the opportunity to do something big, bold, beautiful, that is today. That is right now. That is by passing the CR and then passing, or not even, look, you could even not pass the CR and still engage in the massive budget cuts. That's all I want. Whatever's going to get us to massive budget cuts, getting rid of entire departments, entire agencies, taking what DOGE is doing from the executive branch and doing it in the legislative branch to make it more permanent, more secure, more lasting. That, to me, is worth rolling the dice. Could we get burned? Yeah, I think so. I think we really could. I just hope we don't. I'm not going to put a percentage on it. I'm just going to hope for the best. Hope that they take this CR, run with it, but then DOGE keeps doing its thing. The other departments keep doing their things because they're doing great too. Well, most of them. Don't get me started on the Department of Justice. That's a whole other issue. We'll talk about that some other day, but at least the other departments are doing great, right? So let's give them an opportunity to cook. With that said, if I had my druthers, I still hope the Democrats shut it down and we can blame them for it. That'd be great. I told you we had more than one Canada story today, and this one is the bigger one. It's fine ripping on Doug Ford and watching him cower, but there is somebody who is apparently not very weak, who's apparently pretty darn connected, and who may end up being a threat to the United States of America. And that is Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Now, I don't know a lot about Canada, but Ezra Levant from Rebel News, he showed us, and he had some thoughts about the recent election of Mark Carney as PM. The quote-unquote vote that put Carney as Prime Minister of Canada cannot be trusted and is statistically impossible. This comes to us from Rebel News and Ezra Levant. Look, I know about as little about Canadian politics as most Canadians know about cleaning and maintaining a firearm, but I do trust Ezra Levant, and I trust Rebel News because they know, they get it, they're Canadian, and they are very much conservative. Let's go to their site. And again, Ezra Levant did a video. I may play some of it. I already saw some of it on X, and that's what made me seek this out. Levant writes, I was surprised when Mark Carney got 85.9% of the Liberal leadership vote. Few Canadians know much about Carney, including most Liberals. I was even more surprised that Chrystia Freeland, Trudeau's high-profile lieutenant for nearly a decade, couldn't even get 10% of her party's vote. But the more I look into it, the more incredible the official numbers were. Take this one. In Chrystia Freeland's own Toronto riding of University Rosedale, she got 11.8% of the vote. And Mark Carney got 83%. In terms of raw numbers in her district, where she and her family live, where she's best known, she got a grand total of just 188 people to vote for her, in a district with more than 100,000 people. It's the same thing for Karina Gould, another cabinet minister. She's from Burlington, Ontario. Her whole life and family are there, but according to the Liberals, only 190 people supported her. Mark Carney crushed her. And then I started looking through every single district. Carney's vote was suspiciously similar in every single one of the 338 ridings in Canada. in rural ridings or big cities, in the East or the West or the North or the Atlantic, in French-speaking ridings or English-speaking. Carney won every single district, and his vote never fluctuated by much. I've been poring over the results all morning, and I just don't think it's statistically impossible. We need an audit. It's one thing for the Liberal Party to allow irregularities in their system, but this is choosing our next prime minister. There's so many questions that need to be answered, including how the Liberals disqualified most of the people who signed up to vote. Liberals say they had nearly 400,000 people, quote-unquote, registered, but only a fraction of that, just over 150,000, were verified and had their vote counted. Why were most voters disqualified? Was it fraud? Were they impersonating someone? Were they fake accounts? Were they trying to vote from a foreign country? Who was in charge of deciding who could vote or not? How were hundreds of thousands of individual votes handled in a matter of hours? Was it a computer program? Who wrote the program, and was it hacked? Who certified the vote? Were there any scrutineers? I don't trust it. It needs to be audited, and not by some liberal appointed consultant, and not by the partisan hacks at Elections Canada. So, according to the statistics from these 338, ridings, I don't even know what that means. I'm not Canadian. But I'm assuming that's like congressional districts, basically. So, out of 338 of them, Carney got at or near, or right around 85% in all of them. And as Ezra Levant points out, nobody knew who he was until like 10 minutes ago. And yet here he is, getting 85% of the vote from the Liberal Party, who's, because they have the majority, they are picking the PM to replace Justin Trudeau, and they picked Carney. Or did they? I think what Levant is saying here, and I would argue that he's probably correct when you look at the statistics, it doesn't make any sense. How could the votes be so close? Didn't matter where you took the vote. The vote was going to be the same no matter what. 85%, 83% here, 87% there. But even in the home districts or ridings of two of his opponents, Mark Carney's opponents, popular opponents, by the way, they could only muster under 200 of their own friends, family, staff, neighbors. How could it be that way? Is it that even statistically possible? And Levant says no. And again, I tend to agree with him looking at the numbers. This tells us that Mark Carney was very likely installed. By whom? Almost certainly the globalist elite cabal. This is a former central banker. This is someone who is vehemently opposed to President Trump. This is somebody who is extremely aligned with the World Economic Forum and other globalist entities. Canada has gone from the frying pan into the fire, so to speak, it would seem. We need to pay close attention to this, not just because they're our neighbors, not just because we're currently in a little tiff with them over tariffs, but because this could represent the globalist elite cabal's foray into North American politics. This could be them taking their junior World Economic Forum puppet in Trudeau and upgrading him to a full-blown globalist elite.
But what if you did 338 districts and every single one Mark Carney won by almost exactly the same margin, plus or minus a couple of points? What are the odds of that? Well, what are the odds of getting heads in a coin toss 100 times in a row? So small I can't even calculate them. I'm going to calculate them to make my point here. My calculator can't even help that, can't even work on that, but I think the number is so big, it takes up the whole screen of my calculator. It's impossible. It would be like not finding a needle in the haystack. It would be like finding a needle in the galaxy, 1/2 to 100. The odds of getting heads 100 times in a row are a grain of sand on our planet, finding one grain of sand. What are the odds of Mark Carney getting 85% plus or minus 5 in 338 districts? Even in Chrystia Freeland's hometown, even in Karina Gould's hometown. Are you telling me that Chrystia Freeland could only muster 188 friends in University Roselawn Her board alone is 30 people, her personal staff, her family. Are you telling me that there were only 188 people in her riding where she's been working tirelessly for a decade? Are you telling me that? I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Go flip a coin 100 times in a row, and I'll believe that more than I believe this. Or Karina Gould in Burlington. Has Mark Carney ever been to Burlington? Can he find it on a map? Mark Carney lives in Ireland or New York or London. I don't know where he lives. I don't think he's ever been to Burlington in his life. And are you telling me that he crushed Karina Gould in her hometown, where her friends are, where her family is, where her neighbors are, where her staff are? Are you telling me, and with the same percentage, are you telling me Mark Carney's percentage is the same everywhere in the country, including in Chrystia Freeland's district and Karina Gould's district? Oh, and I'm also supposed to believe, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, but by the way, we've disqualified 2/3 of the votes, and by the way, we're not telling you who disqualified them or how, and by the way, we do acknowledge that foreign nationals are allowed to participate and children as young as 14, but trust us, this is a secure and robust process, and you know that because we just sent out an email about that. Not that we're a little worried about you thinking it, but we're just going to lead with that. Hey, everybody, we had an election last night, and it was really secure. Have you ever heard anyone say that in your life? Hey, how did the election go last night? What happened in the election last night? Well, it was really secure, guys.
I don't know. That's pretty compelling to me, to my American ears. Look, we've hated on Justin Trudeau for a very long time, but recently, I would say over the last couple of years, he's demonstrated that he has really not deserved our concern. He has always been sort of he's definitely a globalist, but he's a globalist wimp. He's a globalist middle manager, perhaps even a placeholder. He never really had the mental capacity. He never really had the emotional stability. He's a very weak man. Whereas, from what we can see about Mark Carney, he has the mental capacity. He has the emotional stability. He does not appear to be a weak man, and that should concern us greatly. They are our allies and our neighbors, and we are currently directly engaged with them in extremely important economic negotiations. Let's see how this plays out, but let's keep a very close eye on new Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. This one is the big story of the day, the big as far as I'm going to spend the most time on it, because it's a message that's not getting out there. I think there's still a little bit of a drunkenness left over, hangover from the elections. I think maybe Republicans are getting a little bit too cocky, not reminding themselves that, hey, the uniparty swamp, the globalist elite cabal, the deep state, all the various bad guys, they still cheat. And we haven't done anything to stop that. And I know that we still have a year and a half before the election really gets going, but it's not too early to start trying to stop the rampant widespread voter fraud that still exists in the American election system. Today, we did get some good news, and I want to talk to you about ActBlue. House Republicans seek answers about ActBlue's potentially fraudulent and illicit financial activities. This is a big story that's barely getting covered, but at least it is getting covered. You know, generally I cover stories that really nobody's talking about. Some people are talking about this. Now, granted, they should have been talking about this back in 2023 when we first started covering it, when James O'Keefe first started covering it, when a lot of people, the Gateway Pundit, started covering it, but legacy media definitely wasn't going to touch it, and even most in conservative media did not, but now they finally are. And praise God for that, because we need this information to get out there. This comes from thefederalist.com, thefederalist.com. Logan Washburn reporting over there. Republican congressmen are seeking answers about potentially fraudulent and illicit financial activity through the Democrat fundraising platform ActBlue. Meanwhile, top officials are fleeing the company. Republican Rep. Ryan Steil, James Comer, and Nick Langworthy wrote Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on March 10th, seeking information about suspicious activity through ActBlue. The committees remain concerned with recent reports suggesting fraud and evasion of campaign finance law by individuals exploiting online contribution platforms, especially ActBlue. The congressman requested all suspicious activity reports filed or relating to transactions since January 1st, 2023, containing the term ActBlue, which relate to money laundering, counterfeit credit card and debit cards, credit card or debit card fraud, false statements, wire transfer fraud, or identity theft. And that last one is going to be the easiest one. That's where they should be able to really make an impact, because apparently ActBlue, or somebody at ActBlue, or somebody working through ActBlue, or whatever, however the relationship is, they were engaged in extraordinarily fraudulent identity theft. In other words, they would take people and take somebody who, for example, finds some elderly lady who back in 2014 donated to the Obama something or another. I don't know. She donated $15. Well, her information is retained in ActBlue. Not necessarily her financial information, but the public information, her name, her address, her place of employment, oftentimes retired. They would find these people, and then they would start donating, not with their money. So it's not like they were stealing money from these people to donate to Democrats, to donate to Planned Parenthood or whoever. They were just taking their identity and donating on their behalf, probably from either foreign or massive domestic sources. We'll go with foreign for now. Let's assume that, for example. Let's say the Chinese Communist Party wants to drop, I don't know, $5 billion into elections since 2020. Just picking a round number, right? They can't just donate $5 billion. They can't donate a single dollar because they are the Chinese Communist Party. That would be illegal. What they could do is they could donate $15 through Fran to go to Joe Biden's campaign, and then later on donate another $32 through Clarence or whatever. They can pick all these people who have, again, their information is public and it is in the system. Now they can just start donating on their behalf, utilizing throwaway Visa debit cards or whatever, finding ways to be able to donate money through these people, oftentimes in as much as tens of thousands of dollars over a short period of time. Back in 2023, James O'Keefe went knocking on doors, and he'd say, "Hey, Gloria, looks like you have donated to ActBlue an average of 3 times per day for the last 4 years, totaling $74,000. And Gloria's like, "What the heck? I do not. I donated like one time to something. I donated like $5, and you're saying I donated $74,000. And it's like, yeah, your name and your address has been used. And as I've said before, this is very dangerous. This puts people at risk, and we can't know for sure if anybody like unless they're able to capture the assailants and figure out how they did it. We don't know who went to this publicly available information and said, "Oh my gosh, look, you know, that 85-year-old lady down the block, we know she lives alone, and apparently she's been donating like $80,000 a year. So she must be loaded. Let's go rob her." That can happen because, again, names, addresses, all that stuff available publicly once you make those financial contributions through ActBlue. Back to the article. ActBlue is currently fraught with internal chaos, according to the New York Times. The platform's senior staff began resigning in late February, with 7 top officials leaving the platform and a remaining lawyer suggesting he faced internal retaliation. Stiles said in a statement to the Federalist that he is committed to making our elections more secure. Our investigation into ActBlue has revealed that there have been weaknesses in our online campaign finance systems, and we need to implement key safeguards. I'm eager to review the suspicious activity reports from the Treasury Department soon. Stile, Comer, and Langworthy said in the letter that it is crucial to review the documents soon to determine whether legislation is needed to uphold campaign finance laws and guard against illicit foreign influence or other illegal activities in U.S. elections. And it's not just, we're going to focus on the foreign aspect of this because that is the most blatantly illegal. But let's say, just as an example, I'm not going to say any names, but let's say a rich radical leftist billionaire wants to be more engaged in the elections. They can go through dark money. They can go through these various PACs, of course, but there is also the possibility of being able to donate directly to candidates or causes that they like by utilizing this platform. I'm not, again, not making an accusation, just saying that it's definitely possible, and it would be extraordinarily hard to track based upon the way things are today. I've said before, and I'll say it again. It is extremely important for the future of the United States of America that we are able to not only retain Republican control of the House and Senate, but to advance those majorities, to make them bigger, if possible. And then, of course, we have the 2028 election, right around the corner, 3.5 years away. Point being is this, and this is the part where I hope that we can wake up as many patriotic Americans as possible. President Trump won simply because, and only because, he was able to have an election where it was too big to rig. Okay, praise God for that, because I don't think that without the assistance or without the direct will of God to put President Trump into the White House, I think that we would have lost. I think that they would have cheated far worse than they did in 2020. I think that there's a reason why Kamala Harris had set records for massive numbers of small donors, many of whom had no idea that they were donating to Kamala Harris, apparently. And this has to be corrected. This has to be corrected before the 2026 election. We cannot say, oh, look, we won in 2024. The election system is fine. We cannot say, oh, well, we just got to keep trying harder and doing better. No, we have to cut off every possible avenue of election fraud or voter fraud, because I guarantee you this, they were smacked, spanked, obliterated. The globalist elite cabal, the deep state, the uniparty swamp, they all felt the pain from the 2024 election. They were ashamed, embarrassed. They couldn't stop the bleeding. They can blame Joe Biden. They can blame Kamala Harris. They can blame Barack Obama. They can blame whoever they want. But at the end of the day, they're going to double and triple down on their massive widespread voter fraud that they've been engaged in for however long it's been happening. We know it happened. At least they were trying to make it happen in 2016. We know for sure that it worked in 2020. We know that in 2022, it definitely worked. Again, midterm election. Once again, many elections, I believe, were very much stolen. For those who don't recall, going into the 2022 midterm elections, it was supposed to be a red tsunami. All the polls were saying red tsunami, red tsunami. And then all of a sudden, the red tsunami didn't materialize. And you had people even on the right, conservatives out there saying, oh, well, you know what? It was because of overturning of Roe v. Wade. People suddenly, they wanted to protect women's rights. And that's why, the polls were wrong. And I'm like, are you stupid? Are you stupid? Because if that's what you think, then what you're suggesting is this, that in the weeks and even days leading up to the 2022 midterm elections, all of the polls suggested that there was going to be a red tsunami. But all of a sudden, on election day, you had millions of Americans wake up and realize, oh my gosh, did you guys hear the news? Roe v. Wade's been overturned. Holy cow. I had no idea that this has apparently been a thing forever. And as a result of that and my desire to protect women's rights to murder preborn babies, I'm going to switch my vote, even though yesterday I just told the pollster that I was voting for the Republican. Now I'm going to switch that. And that happened millions of times. Apparently, the American people are so extraordinarily stupid that all of them, so many of them, hadn't heard about the abortion debate until the day of the election, because all the polls in the days prior to the 2022 midterm election still pointed to a red tsunami that did not materialize. It was voter fraud, folks. It was voter fraud. Period. All these members of, Democrats really chap my khakis, but nothing gets me more annoyed than the people on the right who are either dumb or they don't want to rock the boat. They're being careful. They want to make sure they get their invites to speak at CPAC or to go to the White House and pick up a binder from Pam Bondi or whatever. And I'm not ripping on those people, by the way. I want to be clear. That was a low blow. I shouldn't have said that. But point is that we have, let me get back on track with what we're talking about. We have a responsibility, and I would say that the Republican Party, not just at the national level, but also at the various state and even local levels, need to understand that it's going to be a hardcore, massive attack in the 2026 midterms and the 2028 presidential elections. Both of them are going to be hit hard with massive widespread voter fraud. We need to assume that. This attack on ActBlue is just the opening volley, and we're going to win this one, I think. I hope. But this is just the start. There are so many avenues through which the globalist elite cabal and the deep state of the uniparty swamp can steal elections. This is just one of them. And this is, if anything, this is the most, what's the word for it? This is the most, the least nefarious way. They're just trying to funnel more money to the candidates. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying compared to other aspects of voter fraud, this one's a minor one. Okay? They'll be able to figure out some other way to filter money and to get their candidates better funded than their Republican or conservative counterparts or opponents, I should say. Let's get back to the article. Potential fraud and interference. The Committee on House Administration and Committee on Oversight and Government Reform initially sought answers during the previous Congress, but former President Joe Biden's Treasury stalled in complying, according to the letter. And this is a quote from the letter. It says, although the Biden administration initially stalled the committee's request in its entirety 4 months, on January 2nd, 2025, Treasury allowed the committees to review only limited documents. We write to request Treasury, in its commitment to transparency and cooperation, provide both committees with the remaining records relevant to our investigation. ActBlue only began requiring safeguards such as card verification values, or CVV, following heightened security late last year. These are standard procedures to guard against identity theft and fraud, according to the letter. But here's the thing. Let's talk about that real quick. You know, everybody was celebrating a lot, even again on the right. A lot of people were celebrating when they said, "Oh, well, you know, ActBlue does not require CVVs, but now they're going to require it. Therefore, you know, that's going to stop it." No, that just adds an additional human factor. In other words, in order for them to be able to generate and to push these fake donations, these donations that are coming from someplace like communist China, and then filter through these unsuspecting blue donors from the past. In order to do that, somebody's going to have to sit there and input a 3-digit code off the back of a card. That's it. It doesn't really stop it. It just adds a minor additional expense in personnel that are being used. That's it. So people are calling that a big victory. It wasn't. It was barely a minor victory. You couldn't even call it a speed bump. It was a show. It's like, okay, we're going to take this seriously. We're going to start requiring these 3-digit codes. That way, nothing else to fear here. We got this under control. Go away, Republicans. Go away, James O'Keefe. Go away, Rucker. We're not going away. The attorneys general of 19 states have launched investigations into ActBlue. Stiles sent letters to the attorneys general of Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, Texas, and Virginia in September, updating them on the committee's investigation into ActBlue and providing them with data and evidence. According to the letter that they wrote, Scott Bessent, the organization is also the subject of several state-level investigations stemming from allegedly fraudulent contributions made via the platform without the reported contributors' awareness. Serious allegations that, if proven true, would violate federal law. And here's the thing. Proving it true isn't going to be hard. They just need manpower. That's it. They just need people. You got the names. You got the addresses. You have DOGE or somebody go through and pick out all the weird ones. Hey, this lady, who apparently is living off Social Security, has been donating like $50K a year for the last 5 years. She sits there apparently on her computer all day and donates to 2, 3, 5 different causes, very small money donors or small money donations. She's the Energizer Bunny when it comes to giving away money that she doesn't actually have. They just got to go knock on those doors. It will be easy to find that this fraud, this violation of federal law is taking place at a large scale. If James O'Keefe was able to uncover dozens, hundreds of them, then certainly these 2 committees within the Republican-run Congress should be able to do it, as should attorneys general in these various states that are also investigating, as should Pam Bondi and Scott Bessent and pretty much everybody out there. The FBI should be getting involved. This is something that we can fix. So let's fix it. That's all I'm saying. I mean, not complicated here. In addition to congressional investigation, ActBlue faces a wave of departures amongst its top officials. They're scurrying. The lights are coming on. The cockroaches are heading for the cracks. They're trying to jump off that ship before it sinks with them on it. ActBlue's Chief Revenue Officer, Associate General Counsel, its top legal officer, Customer Service and Partnership Directors, Assistant Research Director, and Engineer who helped develop the electronic pipes through which the group's donations flow, and a Human Resource Officer left the group beginning on February 21st. A very diverse range of people who are terrified of what's going to happen to them personally once their con is revealed. Meanwhile, a remaining lawyer advised staff that his access to email and internal platforms had been cut off and reminded his coworkers that, quote, "We have anti-retaliation and whistleblower policies for a reason." In other words, stop trying to throw me under the bus. Stop trying to blow the whistle. Guys, just run for cover, but don't take me down with you. Congressional Republicans have been investigating ActBlue. By the way, if you couldn't tell, I enjoy this particular story because finally, after, again, it's been well over a year since we started reporting on it, seeing action, that's kind of vindicating. Not going to lie. I like that this is happening. Congressional Republicans have been investigating ActBlue for months, as the Federals previously reported. Style subpoenaed ActBlue CEO Regina Wallace-Jones in October, demanding documents and communications related to ActBlue's donor verification policies and the potential for foreign actors, Communist China, primarily from Iran, Russia, Venezuela, and Communist China, to use ActBlue to launder illicit money into U.S. political campaigns. They're taking money from anybody who's willing to give it. Maduro's, hey, he's got some money, and Xi Jinping, he's going to throw in a few billion, and the Ayatollah, he's like, hey, yeah, let's own these elections, and whoever, Vladimir Putin even. Wow. After Biden was forced out of his bid for re-election in July 2024, then Vice President Kamala Harris raked in record-breaking hundreds of millions of dollars through ActBlue. More than $80 million in the first 24 hours and $310 million that month, the Federalists reported at the time. This drew attention to ActBlue's fundraising practices and raised alarms about potential smurfing. Remember that word? Or you don't have to. It's not an important word. Smurfing, a criminal practice that consists of dividing large transactions into smaller ones to avoid legal reporting requirements, obscuring the identity of the donor. In other words, if Xi Jinping wanted to take couple $1 billion and inject it into radical leftists taking control of the government here in the United States of America, they would send it through. Somebody would then take it, parse it out, take that $2 billion and drop it down into like little $20 increments, $99 here, $199 there, $15, $34, whatever. And then they just grab their list. And it's like, okay, Betty, Betty, you've already donated 4 times today. Let's squeeze in one more for Kamala. One more for Kamala. Of course, the money comes from the CCP, but it's being sent to the Kamala campaign through Betty, whoever Betty is. And Betty, of course, has no idea that this is happening on her behalf. Everybody that James O'Keefe interviewed, they were all shocked. First the question was my money stolen? And it wasn't. And this is why this has been able to stay under the radar. It's not like they're taking anybody's money. They're donating on somebody else's behalf. That way they don't have to say, we can't donate $2 billion from a foreign entity into, I guess we're going to have to take that $2 billion, divide it up, a million times, a billion times. No, I guess it would be probably 100 million times, approximately 100 million times. And then, we got 85,000 donors. That means we got to throw three donations a day. And we do that every day, 7 days a week. And nobody's going to notice. Like Joe Biden or anybody, Alejandro Mayorkas or anybody like that. Like they're going to say anything. We're just trying to save this democracy by cheating it. That's all. No big deal. As the Federalist reported, Republican Senator Ron Johnson has been calling attention to smurfing through ActBlue for years, pointing out foreign actors could use the system to influence American elections. Under the radar, well, hopefully, Lord willing, they are finally coming into the radar. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson called for wider investigations of ActBlue in December, ActBlue has accepted foreign gift cards until September. This is illegal. At the time, Stiles said there is still more work to be done to ensure our campaign finance system is fully protected from fraud and unlawful foreign interference. And again, it's important that we note that this is campaign finance interference. Is it a big deal? Absolutely. Is it huge? No. No, it's a big deal. It is a very big deal, but it's not huge. Huge would be finding out how they are able to, or we think we know how, but to be able to prove how they are able to, they being, again, the uniparty swamp, how they are able to steal these elections. We have very good ideas of how it happens. We know that it's a multi-front war. We know that they're utilizing every tool in the voter fraud toolbox to be able to manufacture votes or suppress votes at times. We saw this. Don't even get me started on 2022 Maricopa County, which was very, very clearly and a perfect example of massive widespread voter fraud. That one hits hard. So I'm not going to talk about that. Let's focus on the future. 2026, not far off. 2028, right around that corner. Before both of those elections. So let's focus on 2026 since it's next. Before the 2026 elections, at the city, county, state, and federal level, every possible way to ensure voter integrity, every possible action by government and by citizen groups, to be clear, must be taken. They are going to try to steal the next election. They are going to accomplish the theft of the next election because we won't be able to achieve too big to rig. President Trump achieved too big to rig. By the grace of God, President Trump is our president. We cannot assume that same degree of protection, that same whatever you want to call it, we can't assume that's going to happen again in 2026. We have to stop the voter fraud now. If we don't, and this is what's at stake, if we don't stop it now, there is a huge chance, I'm talking like over 90% chance, that we will never have the opportunity again. We have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. We have an opportunity. And if we don't stop them now, they are not going to allow us to have another opportunity. They are going to cheat until they have permanent Democrat globalist rule. There's a rush, a gold rush, going on right now, not just by central banks, not just by entire countries, not just by those trying to refill Fort Knox before Elon Musk and President Trump get there. No, there's a gold rush happening amongst individual Americans. It's a gold and silver rush, and it's specifically attracting people of retirement, of or near, I should say, retirement age. People are starting to realize that maybe they don't need their IRAs or 401ks or whatever stuck in the stock market. Maybe they should be looking at physical precious metals like gold and silver. Now, I am not a financial advisor, so I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to tell you who to talk to if you've already made up your mind and you think maybe I should consider it. Go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com, or call 800-200-4653. That's 800-200-GOLD. And check out what the folks over at Genesis Gold Group can do for you. They are a faith-driven precious metals company. They don't do the scams, the cheats, the tactics, such as, offering free or bonus silver. It's never free, and it's not really a bonus. You're paying for it. They just tack it onto the price and then say, "Oh, look, here's free, here's bonus." No. It's they probably have a good role to play in government, at least the old government. I would imagine that DOGE and Elon Musk would sniff out their scams. But if you want to deal with a direct and honest company to do a tax-free rollover or transfer of your IRA, go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com. You'll receive a free definitive wealth protection kit, plus you will be contacted by my good friends at Genesis Gold Group. My lovely, brilliant, and talented wife is making her debut on the show, at least for 2025. She used to do my show all the time. She used to be basically my co-host. She got busy, it's just whatever. But she's making her re-debut today in a different format, a different style than she's done in the past. I was hoping to play it yesterday, but we had the technological difficulty, so we're going to play it today. This is why corrupt homeless programs in the U.S. desperately need the DOGE treatment.
Homelessness in the United States, particularly in major blue cities, has been stuck in two conflicting trends. On one hand, more money and resources have been allocated to solving homelessness in cities like Los Angeles, Boston, and Detroit than ever in history. A lot more. On the other hand, the homeless population continues to skyrocket with no relief in sight. How can both of these things be true? Is it just fun mismanagement, ineffective solutions, or is it actually far more nefarious? There are clear similarities between the way money is being wasted on failed homelessness projects in America and the failed humanitarian projects in Africa and elsewhere. Let's first look at Los Angeles. News from early March comes from Kenneth Schrupp at Just the News. Court finds why LA's recent homelessness spending of over $2 billion fails to produce results. A court-ordered assessment of the city of Los Angeles' $2.3 billion in recent homelessness spending has found officials often paid bills without verifying services were provided. This means, in many instances, taxpayer money was spent without any results. That could explain some of the contradiction about rising homelessness despite rising homelessness spending. The city of Los Angeles is home to 45,252 homeless individuals, while Los Angeles County is home to 75,518 homeless individuals, according to the latest point-in-time homelessness count from early 2024. Invoice reviews by the city and LAHSA, typically centered on reconciling aggregate amounts in financial reports, rather than verifying the quality, legitimacy, and reasonableness of expenses. It's noteworthy that the cities with the fastest growing homeless populations and the largest spikes in spending to combat homelessness aren't just Democrat-run. They all have massive Democrat majorities that have been embedded in the government for decades. So what does that have to do with African humanitarian aid? As we have been discovering piecemeal for years, and more acutely since the Trump administration started addressing waste and fraud through the Department of Government Efficiency, much of the aid sent to African and other third world areas are black holes where money is tossed and forgotten. Funds continue to flow in, but nothing seems to change. If anything, it just keeps getting worse. This is by design. What we're learning about foreign aid is that they are very likely fronts for money laundering, CIA bribes, and off-the-books projects. The same seems to be the case with domestic programs, especially the various wars against homelessness being waged in deep blue cities. And while it seems unlikely the CIA is involved in those programs, the money laundering and off-the-books projects are almost certainly happening in these blue cities and even states. A recent investigation launched by independent journalists has uncovered deeply troubling scandals in California, and they're not unique. Like humanitarian aid in Africa, homelessness solutions in blue cities in America have very little oversight and almost no exposure from legacy media. Nobody is looking beyond the accounting, and books are very easy to cook. If we pull back the covers and dig deeper into how the money is actually spent, whether in Africa or on the streets of blue cities, we are very likely to find that many people are getting paid and no solutions are actually being funded. They want the problems to persist. Sunlight needs to shine on every failed homelessness project in America. If the money isn't going to real solutions to assist the unhoused, then how is the money really being used? Who is getting paid? What DOGE is just starting to do with foreign aid, government employee efficiency, and redundancies in bureaucracy needs to happen specifically with the various homeless programs across the country. Chances are there are people who are breaking the law to not only launder funds, but also to keep the homelessness scam going. The worse the problem gets, the easier it is for the corruption to thrive.
There's a set of words that I want you to get in your brain. Okay? Remember these words very as best you can. Okay? Democrats are obstructing the will of the American people. Democrats are obstructing the will of the American people. They're not obstructing MAGA. They're not obstructing Donald Trump. They're not obstructing DOGE or Elon Musk or even the Republicans as a whole. They are obstructing the will of the American people. Get those words, memorize, write it down, memorize it, because that needs to be our rallying cry between now and 2026. And we need to be repeating it pretty much, I don't know, every week, maybe even every day. Republicans in the House must pass bills Americans want and then let Democrats in the Senate shoot them down. This needs to start immediately, and hopefully it is actually starting immediately. But this needs to become a trend. This needs to be done in earnest between now and Election Day 2026. The message here that they need to generate is that Democrats it's not that they're obstructing President Trump. It's not that they're obstructing Republicans. It's not even that they're obstructing progress or anything like that. The message needs to be that they are obstructing the will of the people. And the perfect example of this happened very recently. You had every Senate Democrat vote against a bill that would have prevented men and boys from competing in women's and girls' sports. This should be a no-brainer. 80% of the American population agrees with that concept. They don't want boys setting records in girls' sports. They don't want boys competing against girls. And yet every Senate Democrat voted against it. We need that on repeat every single week of Congress. We need to find the bills that the American people want. Bills that, and they have a wide range of them, maybe not nearly as popular or universally approved as the trans sports bill, but they can find bills where a majority of Americans agree with the bill. All they have to do is look to the executive orders that President Trump is putting out. Pick out the ones they want to codify, force them through the House, okay, and then get them to the Senate and have them shot down. Every time they get shot down, they need to go to independent media, Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson or Glenn Beck or Megyn Kelly or JD Rucker, and they need to say, this is what the people want. They've made it clear. The polls show this. The reactions show that. Here's the results of President Trump's executive order. We went to codify it, and Democrats obstructed the will of the people. Democrats are obstructing the will of the people. That is the message that they need if they're going to reverse this trend, if they're going to have a chance of even getting a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate while retaining control of the House of Representatives. But like I said, it already is sort of happening. According to George Caldwell over at Daily Signal, GOP lawmakers aim to codify Trump's executive orders. GOP members on the Republican Study Committee promised Tuesday to fight to turn President Trump's executive orders into law. Representative August Pfluger, a Republican from Texas, chairman of the RSC, was joined at a news conference by a dozen other Republican lawmakers, each of them touting their legislation. Pfluger began the press conference by praising Trump's work to eliminate government waste, to secure our borders, and to push back against radical gender and DEI policies. The Texas lawmaker then promised that he and his fellow Republicans would codify the president's executive orders into law. He said, now our Republican-controlled Congress has a responsibility to reinforce and etch these victories into permanent law. One by one, Americans with the RSC took the microphone to pitch his or her legislation. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, spoke of her legislation to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Representative Pat Harrigan from North Carolina advocated making it more difficult for the executive branch to impose vaccine mandates on the nation's military troops. Representative Chip Roy from Texas proposed repealing the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which was weaponized by the Justice Department under Trump's predecessor, President Joe Biden, to prosecute and imprison pro-life activists who Trump pardoned soon after taking office on January 20th. Despite being confident of the support of fellow Republicans, the lawmakers face a likely partisan obstacle, namely getting enough Democratic votes in the Senate to invoke cloture on filibusters to allow for their bills to go to the Senate floor for a vote. That is, and they're not going to get Democrats to vote for them. They really aren't. They know this. But I mean, every single one of those bills that were listed there, proposed by Greene and Roy, those are bills that the American people appreciate. Those are bills that the American people want turned into law. We also need to make sure to educate people that just because it's signed as an executive order, that's the weakest form of government that we have. People assume that, well, the President of the United States is the most powerful person. What they don't realize is that the executive order is the weakest possible form of government action. It falls below codifying legislation that can be turned into a law, and that falls below rulings from the Supreme Court. Generally speaking, there are exceptions to all those rules, but any executive order can be reversed by the next executive or even by the current executive. If President Trump wanted to rename Gulf of America, if he wanted to rename it Gulf of Mexico tomorrow, he could do that. It's not that easy when you're dealing with legislation that's already been passed, and it's definitely not that easy when you're dealing with judgments from the Supreme Court from the past. Point being is that even if we have to use this and turn it into a show, even if we have to build a highlight reel that can be played over and over again, here's the legislation. This is what Americans want. Republicans passed it. Democrats obstructed the will of the American people. Here's another piece of legislation. 74% of Americans approve of it. 98% of Republicans got it passed. It's ready to go, but Democrats obstructed the will of the people. Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat. We need 60 Republicans, at least, in the Senate. It hasn't been done in a very, 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 very long time, but it can be done. President Trump's policies are very popular. The Republicans, all they need to do on Capitol Hill, all they need to do is follow President Trump's leads, take what he's putting out there, trying to codify it and daring the Democrats to go against the will of the people, just like they did with boys and girls sports. They went against the will of the people and they have this reason or that reason. They all have their own individual reasons. But at the end of the day, they look like idiots, or at least they would if the Republican Party was better at expressing and getting the word out. They need to stop trying to get whoever, Jake Tapper, to side with them. They need to stop even going on these shows, really. I know that you might say, well, but aren't there still, you always say there's plenty of people that still watch them. Yes, I get it, but if they're not going to be allowed to put out the appropriate American message, if they're going to get pushback and lies, then it's time to, you know what? We're done. I don't know if that's the answer, but I do know that one way or the other, if they can figure out the strategy on how to get the word out to people, all I'm suggesting is that's what the word should be. Democrats are obstructing the will of the American people. They get that message out through independent media, legacy media, email, text message, billboards. I don't care. They have the money, they can do the research and figure out how best to get it out there, but get that message out there. And in the meantime, every day that they're around, every week that they can try to pass legislation, they should try. They should dare the Democrats to go against the will of the people. And they should dare them to do this as often as possible and then record about it and then talk about it and make Americans realize that the Democrats don't care about the will of the American people. Democrats only care about retaining their own power. And in 2026, it's time to take that power away from them. Is cryptocurrency a safe investment to back your wealth or your retirement or your life's savings? The answer to that question is I have no idea. And I know that my sponsors probably just had a heart attack when I said that, but it's true. And here's the thing. Anybody who says that they know for sure whether cryptocurrencies are a good investment for this or that or the other, they're probably selling you something. One of the reasons that I personally like to work with Block Trust, the reason that I tell people to go to jdrcrypto.com so they can also consider working with Block Trust, is because they're straightforward, they're honest, but perhaps most importantly, they know what they don't know. That's why they rely on artificial intelligence-driven data to help them make decisions on your behalf. With their managed accounts, they can get you into crypto and have you trading like an expert without you actually having to become a crypto expert. They make moves. They try to get to determine, okay, is Bitcoin going to go up? Is it going to go down? Artificial intelligence tells us it's probably going to go down. Let's go ahead and pull everybody out of crypto, put them in cash for a while, and then once it hits a certain mark, then we'll put them right back in. We'll try to advance their portfolio, whether it's an IRA or 401k or, again, cash. They're extraordinarily easy to work with. Go to jdrcrypto.com to learn more. See what they say. This is a very patriotic company, a very bullish company when it comes to crypto for obvious reasons. But I want to be clear. Just like me, they were very skeptical about even getting into the industry prior to President Trump's election. Once President Trump was elected, it made sense. They worked with partners who've been in the crypto industry for years, platforms that have been used in the past by hedge funds. Now they are open to the public, and it is, again, because President Trump won. This has changed the game for cryptocurrency, and it is allowing Americans, of whether you're a crypto expert or a crypto novice or anywhere in between, this brave new world that we're experiencing in cryptocurrency can be most easily navigated by working with Block Trust. Go to jdrcrypto.com, see what they can do with your retirement, your cash, whatever. It's easy. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not telling you, go buy crypto, go buy gold, go buy chickens. Actually, on that last one, it probably would be a good idea to go buy chickens. What a night. Please be sure, if you don't mind, please be sure to subscribe to the JD Rucker Show. And it's not just subscribe if you're watching on Rumble or X or YouTube or wherever. I've got a list of all the various places where I put my show, and I would recommend, because you never know when cancel culture is going to hit me. It could hit me at any time. I get canceled so often, and it's been a while, but that doesn't mean that it won't come again. So Go to jdrucker.com/find. Wherever you're watching me now, be sure to subscribe. Any other place you want to watch me or listen to me on like Apple Podcasts or whatever, please subscribe. And you can find all those on all my socials and everything. jdrucker.com/find. Please be sure to thumb up or like or whatever. Give me the positive affirmation because it makes me feel good. That's not really the reason. But, asking you to help to make me, help me, or help you help, I don't know. You get the idea. Give me a like, thumbs up, whatever it takes to get the algorithm to recommend my videos to more people so we can get a wider range of audiences and help to make America great again. And that's actually all true. I said it in a funny voice, but that part's definitely true. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening rather, or Wednesday morning, technically, if you're on the East Coast, I guess. Yeah, Wednesday morning. Thank you, because I know that your time is precious. And what short time we have here on this earth, I'm grateful that you were willing to spend some of it with me. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.